Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm Veronica Vaughn and I am going to be hosting Celene Aubry from Hatch Showprint for the Visiting Artists Committee today. I want to welcome Celene. Thank you for joining us, and I'm really excited to hear your story and Hatch Showprint's story. So we'll just get started. Let's see. So I was hoping that you could give us a little brief summary of your background and how you learned letterpress and how you got to where you are.
Okay, well first, thanks for having me. This is super fun to have you kind of in the shop virtually, and so welcome everybody. Behind me you can see some of the inner workings of the shop, and in a little while I'll walk around with the camera so we can get a little bit up close. And I'll tell you, it might get a little noisy. We have 3 presses, or maybe 4 presses in operation right now, and they're maybe taking a little lunch break or something like that, but one of them might turn on, so we can hear that in the background. I do apologize. I came to, honestly, in the 21st century, in the late 20th century, there is no formal training for letterpress printing. So much like anybody who's in it right now, we pretty much, of a certain age and younger, we all came to it roundabout. So when I was in college, I studied physics and architecture because I like to know how things work, and I like building things and vision, and all that interested me. But when I graduated, I owed a whole bunch of money, so instead of immediately leaping off into grad school, I decided to take a break and work. And so I worked in a bookstore and a cafe, and moved from Pennsylvania to Chicago because I wanted to live in a big city, and that one sounded pretty cool. It's on a big, beautiful lake in the middle of the country, and so I moved there and started working there, and came upon letterpress printing because I grew up in a household where we were always creative and artistic. My mother is an artist and an accountant. My father is a writer and a doctor, so there's always this combination of left brain, right brain activity happening. And I was designing greeting cards and printing small things, but I was doing it all by hand, and I was hand carving in rubber erasers and hand printing those with rubber stamping. And I was talking to a graphic designer friend of mine, and I said, there's got to be a slightly faster way to do this. And he said, oh, yes, there is. It's called letterpress printing. And this was in the 90s, I think. 90s? No, 2000s. And so I looked into it, and Chicago is a printing city, and both Columbia College and the Art Institute of Chicago offered letterpress printing, and so I signed up for some classes at Columbia College Book and Paper Center. And my first teacher is actually teaching at UT Denton, David Wolski. And he was my very first letterpress teacher, and I learned from him and threw myself into it, and all my nights and weekends were spent letterpress printing and visiting places like Hamilton Wood Type and Print Museum in Wisconsin, which was just an hour and a half, or 3 hours from me in Chicago, and volunteering there. And then I took a workshop with Jim Sheridan, who was the longtime manager of Hatch Showprint, and I did that in, good God, 2008, I believe, and started letterpress printing in 2000, learning how to print in 2007, 2008, took that workshop, and then we just kept running into each other. And at one point he mentioned in 2010 or 11 that the shop was going to be moving into a beautiful new space, custom designed for it, as the city of Nashville was growing, and probably the business was going to expand. And I said, if you need some help with that. And by that time, My day job was in marketing and sales. I was the creative or marketing director for a very small resort in the British Virgin Islands, and worked very closely with the owners, and it was very hands-on in terms of design and copywriting and all of that kind of stuff. So I got to do a lot of different things and telling stories mainly. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I thought, what the heck, I have to work at a place that celebrates this thing that I'm so passionate about, which is letterpress printing and wood type in particular, which I really love. And Columbia College at the time had an incredible wood type collection. And so it's a place where I could practice this craft and earn a revenue. It's a business. And I just love that. Again, it's going back to that combination of problem solving and creative and left brain, right brain. And so here I am.
That is how most of us come to it, right? It's always a thing in the back of your head, like collecting fonts, to do that horrible thing where you stick them up on a shelf and look at them, and then one day you actually learn how to use them and you're regretting that you ever stuck them on a shelf. So I get that, yeah. So all of that, and then meeting, Jim Sherrod and him saying, think about this, led you to becoming the associate director and manager at Hatch Show Print, making you the first woman to run the letterpress print shop in, it's 140-year history, 141 now, right? And what an honor that is. So tell us about your first time visiting Hatch Show Print. What was it like for you? Did you know that you were going to actually one day run the place?
I have a confession to make. I visited Hatch Show Print the first time in my first round of interviews for the job. There was, this is the letterpress printing community. It is such a small community of really wonderful people, and we are very generous and open and giving and up to it into our eyeballs and having all these conversations. And I had taken the workshop with Jim Sherrod and Brad Vetter, who was a staff person who was here for a while, and is now in Louisville, Kentucky, making great posters and prints and things. And I had seen so many photographs of the shop, and I had heard so many stories, and I had actually seen a few videos, and I knew, I could tell, and you can probably tell from looking behind me and from Veronica's wallpaper, which is wonderful. It's a beautiful space, and I knew, to be perfectly honest with you, that if I ever visited, I would not leave. I would be that person who would find a way to get beyond the customer area, back to where the printing presses and the type and the paper was, and they wouldn't be able to get rid of me. And so I held off as long as I possibly could. And so my first visit was in, I think, May of 2012. Yep. And it was so that I could see Nashville, visit Nashville, and most importantly, meet the staff, because as any of you guys know who've done this before, done anything manual, it's a dedication, and you have to have some fiber in you to want to deal with the tediousness of working on press and what, your vision coming to mind on the paper, and how you have to make that happen, both from the creative side through the practical side, from color, mixing ink, to making sure everything prints well and all of that kind of stuff. And so it was important to me to meet the staff and interact with them and see that we were all going to be rowing in the same direction, and we all had the same sort of perspective about letterpress print and the shop and its place in the community of letterpress printing, but also in the design community, and then the community at large, Nashville and beyond. And what's great is that they were just a great group of people, and it just made me even happier that I was, you know, in the lineup to be here on a permanent basis. So.
That is a wonderful story, and I am very, very jealous of your position. So, from my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, did you coordinate the move from the original facility or building to Hatch Show Print in the... Okay, so tell us about that. What was that like?
Yeah. Yes, so, you know, as I said, Jim knew the shop was moving, and the reason why is because Nashville has experienced such an incredible ongoing growth and development. In 2008 and 2009, if you remember, most of the country was going through a recession of sorts, or depression, depending on how you look at it. And Nashville never experienced that. They were one of 8 mid to large American cities that continued to grow through those last couple of years of the first decade of the 21st century. And part of that was a phase of downtown Nashville's development that included building a brand new convention center, a bunch of new hotels, to continue to attract not only the visitors that come for the live music and the entertainment and Lower Broad, as we call it, where the honky tonks are and things like that, but also to start to attract more interesting restaurants and chefs and a larger, be able to service larger conventions and meetings and trade shows and things like that. As part of that, Hatch Show Print, which is part of the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, we're all sort of part of the Country Music Foundation, we needed to move. We needed to get into a place that was bigger. I'll go back, I'll give you just a touch of history on the shop. Privately owned for the first 100 plus years. Then in 1986, Gaylord Entertainment, which is the same company that owns and operates the Grand Ole Opry and the Ryman Auditorium, which is one of our most historic venues in the country and here in Nashville, owned Hatch Show Print for 6 years. And then at the end of those 6 years, they donated it to the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, so that to guarantee the preservation of the shop. And so while we are a working museum, an active business, we are part of the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. And they had, and it's incredible if you come from a big city to imagine this, but at the turn of the 21st century, they had their beautiful museum, and they had an entire parking lot that covered the rest of a city block in downtown Nashville. And downtown Nashville had a ton of street level parking. And so the convention center is right across the street from us. And as part of that development, this city block needed to be developed as well and redeveloped. And so included in that thought process was making sure that the print shop could move off of its quote unquote temporary location that we had been on Broadway for about 20 years and move into a purpose-built shop that also could offer other things like a gallery space, a classroom, teaching space, things like that. And so the entire city block that houses the museum was totally developed. And so the museum expanded. We have expanded spaces here. We have a hotel. We have the Omni Hotel at the other end of the city block, and we sort of meet in the middle. We share a hallway, and then in between us there's a couple of shops and restaurants. And that is when I came aboard, was when that was underway, to ensure that everything that you see in this space was carefully moved and laid out. And then not only just the physical move, but the idea, the expansion. What does that mean when you move from a wonderful space in a, narrow building in the old downtown area into this beautiful sort of jewel box of a shop, basically doubling or tripling your floor space, increasing your staff, and then increasing your opportunities and your exposure. And so all of that was wrapped up in this. And so we were able to add a whole education team, and we have our retail store grew, I kid you not, it went from 250 square feet to over 1,600 square feet, just like that.
Nice.
And so developing that full staff, working within the museum's offerings already, because in addition to us, they have two beautiful gift shops and the museum space. And so all of that was part of those years. And so, yeah, I came aboard in 2012 in July, and then we took that year to finalize the space, the physical space, the layout, to make sure that beautiful wall of type behind Veronica and her wallpaper could be moved from Broadway intact and repositioned in our shop here on Fifth Avenue. And we all pitched in, we all packed it, we put the type cases on pallets, and we shrink wrapped them, and we moved them, and we worked with riggers that moved all of our presses, who had moved the presses 2 decades before when the shop moved from right across the street from the Ryman Auditorium onto Broadway. So it was quite an undertaking, totally a team effort, and Jim was there, and we had some great staff working with us from the museum who are familiar with this process. But yeah, that was once I got here, it was, okay, learn everything and then get to work, because we got to move the whole thing.
Yes, definitely. And that is quite the undertaking. I mean, just with the little bit that I have in my shop and having those delivered, I can't imagine this kind of collection moving, and just sort of that, you holding your breath that they don't break anything or, damage the presses or, so what an amazing story. So I can't wait, and I'm hoping that you guys are as anxious as I am. I want to see the shop. I want to see what you have. So if you would show us around, that would be great.
Yeah, you're gonna be like those little screens where I'm gonna carry you around, I'm gonna pick you up, and I apologize in advance if I make anybody a little seasick. I'll do my best. The first thing I'm gonna show you right now, because she's here, is we do have a shop cat.
Yes.
Her name is Mal.
Yeah, and she even played a song.
And she just has no idea what's happening, so she's our princess. So I'll turn back around and I'll face you back where we were looking. And so this area of the shop, you can see on both sides, we've got these cabinets with drawers in them. All of these drawers contain wood and metal type. And this is the smaller type that we use to design and print our posters. I will pull open some cases real quick so you can see those. Got pretty straightforward Gothic type. And that's what exists in all of these cases here. Mm-hmm. And then there's more type in that wall right over there. This is where we're working. This is where we design the posters. I don't want to show you that one because that's not for public consumption, but I work at this set of tables, and I've spread out. I've got ink in containers. I've got jobs in process. I just started designing a job this morning for some folks in Gatlinburg, so we've got some mountains on it. There's a poster with a photo plate of Ruth Bader Ginsburg that I printed last week. A Christmas poster in process. So this is sort of how we all work. We each have our own tables just because of the safe social distancing that we work under here. And we've got spacing, furniture here. I'm just going to walk you over so we can see the presses. once we design something and it's approved by our clients, or we like it, it's for us, it gets put on press. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 Vandercooks originally proof presses, but we use them to print posters because they are the perfect size for posters. Right now, we're working on a big calendar for next year, poster for a client. So we've got these, behind these Vandercooks, we have a Mealy pony from 1900 that was originally a newspaper press that we can use. It's currently, we're not in using it right now because we are so busy making other stuff. And I'll show you another press hopefully. And then this big Vandercook is the press that we use to print really large format blocks. Its press bed can hold about 28 by 40 inches worth of printing stuff. Right now you can see there's a block in it.
Yes.
I don't know if you can see, it's the rodeo cowboy. But I'm gonna shoot up on the wall here and show you. You can see Silas Green, Easy Starting Pico, World's Exposition Shows. Back when the shop opened, first opened, this was more the size of, and format of a lot of the advertising artwork and poster artwork that the shop was designing and printing. And those are all hand-carved wood blocks that were then printed, so those are the prints. This is a reprint of, or a recarving and a print of a baseball player that was originally carved in 1887. And you can see he's about 80 inches tall from top to bottom of that poster and 40 inches wide. And so this was large format advertising that the shop was doing. Billboards, small billboards, big billboards, poster advertising. They did small stuff as well, but this is what the shop got known for, was this incredible advertising. You can see some of it up here. Marcus the Magician, Airstream from the mid-20th century, Rabbit Foot Minstrels, just partially covered by a carnival midway scene. Live entertainment was where it was. You have to think, when the shop opened in 1879, that was the same year, that's the cat in the background, that's the same year that the light bulb was patented, the same year that Albert Einstein was born. So entertainment was live and in person. That needed to be advertised. People needed to know who, what, when, and where, and they would come to a shop like Hatch to make these posters. And so now here we're at the magical wall of type. Although I'm going to swing around real quick to show you an example. These are boards that we build our posters on, typesetting them because it's physical design. And once they're printed, they go over here. We ship them out, or the customer picks up the poster order. Once we know that everything's good, then they go to this pile, and eventually they'll get put away. But you can see, hopefully I can show you this.
Does it all stay locked up?
Yeah. Yeah?
It all stays locked in. Okay. So y'all have a large amount of furniture and coins and keys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so here we've got some of the hand-carved blocks that we use. Nashville skyline. We carve in wood and linoleum. The state of Tennessee, that's carved in linoleum. So that's what the majority of this is. You can see that it's overflowed onto the floor right now, because we have so many. These are the things that we draw upon for visual inspiration to use in our posters to go with the words. Our clients give us the words, and we bring them to life on paper and help tell the story using these hand-carved blocks. Sometimes it's very specific things. These are dogwood flowers. We've got, I'm going to drop something, I have a feeling. We've got this convertible car from the 60s, it looks like. That'll set a very specific tone. And we also have graphic elements, you know, triangles, squares, circles, sunbursts, which are Hatch is particularly known for. Mm-hmm. But because the shop is so old, and everything that we have here in the shop was purchased by the shop specifically to do the work we do, or was made here in the shop, or made locally. And one of the things, hopefully I can show you this, just move it around a little bit. That's a photo plate from 1970 of Led Zeppelin when they came to Nashville. And in that era of poster design, photographs were efficient and a great way to get somebody's image on a poster. But that's sitting up here on a shelf right above all of our Nashville skylines, hand-carved Nashville skylines. And they live together, and that's sort of part of what we do here at Hatch is go back to the history and reference the history of the shop's poster design and bring it forward into the 21st century, put a contemporary spin on it, and celebrate the history of the shop, the history, its connection with live music. We've done posters for Led Zeppelin, but then we've done posters for Robert Plant when he came to Nashville and worked with Alison Krauss and performed with her. And we hope to do posters for him again in the future. And so we're celebrating that the career paths of the folks that we work with regularly, or the businesses that turn to us for posters for trade shows or meetings, or to commemorate special events in their history.
So, Celene, on the...
part of what we do.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was going to ask you a specific question about the wall of tap before you walked away. So I noticed that you pointed out like some carvings and some metal plates, but all of them are original to Hatch Show Print, are they? Or did y'all acquire a larger or another shop in the process, or this is all original to Hatch?
Well, all of the visuals that you see originated with the shop, in the shop. So Charles and Herbert, who founded the shop together, two brothers in 1879, had apprenticed in the printing industry before they moved to Nashville in 1875. And we have type that was carved by them and their staff in between 1879 and 1885. That gorgeous baseball player that I showed you was carved in 1887 in the shop. And that's how the shop's reputation started, was that they could create those incredible visuals. They could create, ridiculously large type. I'm talking type that's 40 inches tall, 80 inches tall. And they have the skill set to carve it and the ability to print it. So it's one stop, and that is quite unique in the 21st century. As you know, graphic design has taken on a whole life of its own, deservedly so, and has become a career path that's completely separate from the process. And now the processes of production are sometimes physical, like here at Hatch, but they're also sometimes virtual. So we have web design and communication design and things like that are not even material. And so, but design has always stayed with the shop. So we carry on the traditions of designing everything we print and printing only what's designed here at Hatch, which is a spectacular thing we're able to do, and it's an incredible legacy to carry on, the connection of those two things.
It is a wonderful legacy, and I'd always wondered about that, because you hear about so many other places that have acquired other shops, and I'd wondered, was that whole wall stuff that had always been there, which I think is amazing. So you were telling us that the one press, the last press that you showed us, the biggest Vandercook, which is very giant, 26 by 40. Is that the largest size that y'all can print there, or do you go bigger?
Yeah.
26 by 40, okay.
Yep. That's as big as we go. I know there are presses that can print like twice that size, or sometimes 3 times that size, but for us, our sort of biggest unit of measure was always about 26 by 40 inches. And that's why I'm going to pick this up again, just because I want to show you some stuff since I can.
Yes.
It's super, you can see this M.
It's so big.
26 by 40 inches. Yeah, and so the reason why we have that size is because at the turn of the 20th century, the largest size of commercially made, i.e. inexpensive, printing paper to print on, was about 30 by 40 inches. And so at that point in time, the blocks and the presses were all sort of designed around that 30 by 40 inches size paper. And so for a place like Hatch, we always maintained this size. And so this type exists here, it lives here. You know, this is the T. And so you can see all of these blocks are the same size.
They are so nice.
With our, the design work as well. So all of these blocks here, we've got this great.
So did you sit out anything that you would call your favorite woodblock?
Oh, that's my favorite. Oh no.
No?
I don't know. I really like this. This says, I don't know if you can see this. It says ladies free Monday night with 1 paid adult ticket. And so this was printed in one color. Obviously they used a lot of green. Maybe it was for Silas Green, one of our longest clients in the 20th century. But this area was left open so they could hand set some additional information. But this is about 26 inches wide, 40 inches tall. And these are the types of things that the shop would print. And the larger format advertising would always be carved in increments of 26 by 40. So you could print the sheet, and then paste them right up next to each other. And you were good to go.
Those are beautiful pieces of artworks, and I'm in awe, and I must go there to see it. But I have a feeling, if I went, I don't know if I'd leave, so I don't know if that's good. So I wondered if you have a favorite font, wood font in the collection there. You have so many to choose from.
No, I can't pick a favorite. I mean, most of what the shop uses is Gothic. And hang on a second. So hopefully you can see this. It comes to us in base. So most people, this square one right here is sort of the Franklin size, Franklin Gothic size, and then everything else is from there. And so a lot of our work, this is like workhorse, work-a-day type for us, and it's a great starting point because the goal is to tell the story. We want to make sure it's legible, always to make sure it's legible. So for me, you know, I just get into the varieties of the sharpness of the angles and the patina of the type itself, but then also the dings and the stories that each letter tells when it's inked and printed and things like that. So for me, it's finding the right face to tell the story the right way with the right tone. I guess that makes sense,
Yes.
right? Like Cooper Black, of which we have an entire cabinet for, to me, is used to tell very specific stories. I know some people don't like it. I think when it's telling the right story, there is no other face that you would want to use for that. So I can't pick a favorite.
I wouldn't be able to either. So then I wondered, and this is me being curious, because like Hamilton Woodtop offers some of their collection as digital. Is the font collection there digitally available?
No, so much of our type is very workhorse type. You're going to get some great, digital faces from a place like Hamilton, or I think of somebody like Jonathan Heffler, who's doing a lot of revival faces. I think, we don't design digitally because when you go to a cabinet to pull out your type and set a line of type, because you'll see, you probably noticed a lot of our posters, the text goes from left to right, it's fully justified, oftentimes top to bottom. And so within that context, when you're physically typesetting, I can pull out, 2 different A's, and I can use one of these A's, and that one will help me give a little bit more breadth, or one will help me fill out a line a little bit more fully, and even within that. So this is in one cabinet because this is number 2 width. This is number 1 width. But even within the number 1 width, there's some that are just a hair or 2 narrower, just a hair or 2 more expanded, and the same with our number 2 and the number 3 width. So to digitize all of that type, we have to stop what we're doing and proof and scan and then make usable in digital design world like millions of letters.
Millions,
each
yes.
One to us is different, and each one is special. So we always, forever, every design, even if our projects, we've done projects like we're doing some ongoing work for Country Living magazine, and right now it's all digital, it's all virtual. So, but every project starts in the physical sphere with the physical type and the hand-carved imagery that we then translate to the digital world. And what we try to do is bring along as much of that texture that we can create when we print it here in the shop into the digital world. That's our goal. And so to digitize all of this stuff,
Not something you'd want to do. The preservation side of me wants to record the fonts that y'all have, just an FYI, just for education purposes. But that's just me like wanting to like save it forever and make sure it never goes away. So tell me, we're going to get into some shop things. What is your favorite machine to work on there? So you said you had what, about 5 Vandercooks? 6?
Yeah, we have 5. Oh goodness. Honestly, my favorite is the Vandercook Universal 1. You want to get super specific. And the reason why I like it is because it's a nice big press bed. You want to talk this technical?
Yes, I want to talk this technical. I want to hear it.
Okay. Okay, so it's got a nice big press bed. We're very, very fortunate in that it has an adjustable press bed. So if I put the type in and it's not looking so good, I can crank that bed up just a tiny, tiny bit, less than the thickness of a piece of paper, and that will make it print all the better. So I love that. That's kind of a luxury. It helps us make writing more efficient. But what I like about it is it has all of that great stuff, but I'm also hand cranking every print. And so that means that when I put my hand on the paper and feed it in and crank it, I can feel the paper going over the type. So I can feel that interaction. And when we're taking care of this collection that we want to live well past my time here, well past everybody who's here today, their time here, taking care of all of the tools, the presses, the type, the hand carved blocks is very, very important. And so we print with kiss impression. We don't leave any marks on the paper, hopefully, or very few. And so for me, I like being able to feel that, and I like that physical idea of connecting to every single print, because my arm is moving every time it passes through the press and reapplying the ink. It's not the most efficient. We have much more efficient presses. You can hear him in the background now. Corey's going like gangbusters out there printing those calendars. And we can walk over there if you want. But I just like being able to connect to what I put into the press book.
I love that because I think that's one of the best things about letterpress is that connection that you get with the material and the paper and the ink. And I appreciate you telling me your story about the Universal #1 because I'm in the market for another press. So when y'all design the pieces, the posters that you do, are you all it's all tactile, hands-on, there's nothing digital that y'all do? Or is there a component of digital? Like, do you use polymer plates, and do you use laser cut type items, or?
We all carve by hand. And so let me back up. When we work with the type and our hand carved blocks, it's all physical. Because of our communication tools with our clients, because we're engaging with them via email a lot, we have to digitize the proofs. So we'll make I can show you real quick. We'll set the type and then print it. This is tracing paper. We'll print it, we'll hand ink it. So I hand inked all this type yesterday, printed it on this tracing paper. I'm letting it dry, and then I'm going to scan this, and then I'm going to work with this digitally because, for instance, all of this stuff, and look at that. Look at that juicy.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
All of this is going to end up being used digitally.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to make a nice print of it. But this is what we do for our clients once we do lay out their type.
That's wonderful. It's nice to see how your process is, and you have such a great collection that you can do it all that way and not have to. And then if you make something, you're hand carving, and that's what you add to the collection on the wall, right?
Yes. And so,
wonderful.
So that we'll do the drawing and bring it into the digital sphere to merge it with the type and say, okay, this is what's happening. This is the color scheme. We don't colorize the prompts or proofs that we send to our clients because what they see on their monitor may not match what we see.
Yes.
We hand mix all of our inks, and so we can mix to Pantone colors, brand colors, all that kind of stuff. Once it's approved, then we'll carve the block. When it's something for digital work like this project, we will still either make a really nice proof or print it on the presses to make sure that it's all tight and registers well and things like that, and then scan those nice prints and assemble them digitally for whatever final files the client might need. But it all starts with the physical, because we cannot recreate. I defy anybody to come up with all the dings and
Yes.
the marks that are on this type. As I sometimes say, sure, you know, our process with our clients takes 2 to 3 weeks, start to finish, design, conversation, approval, production. But for a digital to designer to try to replicate the texture that comes out of a print made from real wood type that's 140 something years old or 150 something years old, would take them at least as long.
Yes, it would. Just do it by hand.
And they'd be staring at the computer screen the whole time, which does not sound like fun to me.
No, well, no, that's one of the things that I love about letterpress is that it's so physical and it's really nice. So I read somewhere that your motto was preservation through production and education. I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit. You know, tell us why it's so important to you to preserve this art form. And then I would like, because I don't know if everybody has seen, that's with us today, I don't know if everybody has seen an actual press running. I can describe it in class all day, but until you actually see it, can we see it run? Because I know you said there was one running, but I don't hear it right now. So I'm a little concerned that he stopped. But I thought maybe we could see it.
No, he's still going, don't worry about that. I'll go fast on the preservation and education. Preservation through production. Literally, every single poster that comes out of the shop has our name at the bottom of it. So every single print that we make that goes out in the world, and in 2019 we made over 200,000 prints. So over 200,000 prints went out in the world with our name on it. So most literally, by producing that many posters, we are preserving the shop's existence and name with a whole audience of people that had never heard of us before. Some of them are diehard fans, some of them are collectors, but some of them have never heard of us before until they went to a show and picked up a poster, or they received a print as a gift from a friend or a family member or something like that. So that's the most literal. Using the wood type, oil-based ink on it conditions the wood. It keeps it from dry rotting or becoming too brittle and breaking, and so there's that process. And preserving the knowledge by us using these ridiculously large and heavy and totally outmoded pieces of technology. We're preserving that knowledge and that information by setting things by hand and thinking about registration by hand and thinking about letter spacing and line spacing, all by hand. We're preserving the origins of that, which relates to the physical, when it was all physical, when there was no digital. So that's important. For me, I go beyond that and that's the education aspect of it, and the fact that we have a whole education team, and we're giving tours to the public. Some of them have never heard of Hat Show Print, but they're just, you know, curious travelers, and when they go to a city, they try to find the things that are unique to that city, and they sign up for exposure to them. And so, to me, that's incredible, because all of the work that we do, all of the posters that we make relate to marking, celebrating, commemorating, or honoring events in our lives as human beings. And so they're all part of the timeline of humanity and our history. And so some people dip in and out of that, and we're connected to what's on the words on these posters, and then when people can see them and see how those posters are made, they become part of that history too. And so we're all then become connected, and all of this information still stays out there in the world. It just doesn't magically appear. That's the issue of one of the things that concerns me about digital design is that it starts from nothing. It starts from nowhere, so to speak. It starts from this black void type space. And so there's no what was before, right? And this is what was before. We got to remember, even though there seems to be no physical connection, it's very much connected. And if you've done it in the virtual world, when you come here and do it, you'll make these connections. And so that's important because I think it makes us more well-rounded as artists, as creators, and as humans viewing the world. But anyway, that's huge. Let's go look at a press.
Okay, let's look at a press, and then I've got some questions from our audience. So.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see a press. And you know, when we attended the Ways Goose this past week, someone said that you're always trying to figure out which came first, the chicken or the egg. But with letterpress, you know which came first. Between letterpress and design, it's always letterpress first, right? So
yes.
You kind of know which one came first. But we're still trying to figure out about the chicken and the egg. So.
It's going to get noisy, but
Okay.
I'm going to come around the corner here, and I'm going to slowly turn the camera around so you can see Corey is working on a big-ass calendar for 2021, and I'll just let you watch it for a few minutes.
So. This one's all automatic. He's just putting the paper in, huh? Beautiful. I enjoy that color. Good color choice. Very springy.
Now he's applying more ink. He's run out. Getting a little light. Whoops. I'll clean that up.
One color at a time, that's what I like.
This is where
Nice rhythm. He's working fast.
this is Jennifer. She's working on a poster for an artist, music artist, who's got a new album coming out. So she's printing the first color. I think the name of the album is Live from the Studio. And it's the local studio here in Berry Hill, which is kind of a town within the city of Nashville. It's like surrounded by Nashville. So she's hand feeding. Here's that adjustable thing.
Oh, yes, yes.
Take this and that changes the bed.
Very beautiful machines. So I personally think there is nothing better than the smell of ink on press. So I've taught my daughter that too. She used to go on press checks with me when she was a baby and when she was a toddler. So she also likes the smell of ink. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but she likes it too. So she comes into my shop and you know, we just sit around sniffing the smell of the ink. We don't literally sniff it, but just FYI, I'm not recommending sniffing ink, but I enjoy the smell of ink on press. So I'm going to ask you a few questions that I've gotten. So Ellen Marr wants to know, what's the most fun or interesting project that you've participated in?
One of the things that I love are doing posters for new musical artists. So we have what we call the local band special, and the posters are a little bit cheaper, but they trust us to do a really great job, so we don't have to go through the client approval process on the design. They just tell us the words, they tell us how many they want, and we design them and print them. But what I love about that is that we are able to provide a product for somebody who is on their first tour or very starting off in their artistic career, in the same way that we get to do posters for the Rolling Stones when they come to Nashville in their 50th year of making music together. Like, I love that dichotomy of those two people, because we did posters for the Rolling Stones on their first visit, second tour in the United States in 1965, first visit to Nashville, and then we got to do posters for them in 2015, 50 years later. And so that's wonderful, like connecting that history that I was talking about earlier, like we are connected with them, they're connected to us, and then anybody who is a fan of the Rolling Stones, we're all sort of having a bit of sharing a conversation.
Yes.
I love that. But what I like too are the unconventional things. So last year, unconventional things, but things that make sense. Last year, the NFL had its draft party celebration here in Nashville in April, and that's when the college football players get drafted into the professional leagues. And to celebrate and commemorate the event, they came to us and we did a poster for all 32 teams for the NFL.
Wow.
Which is, most people look at something like the NFL as one of the most incredibly comprehensive and holistic design shops probably in the world. Think about, they've got 32 different entities that they're trying to make stand out, but also work together, in that sense. And so they're thinking about this, and they're an incredibly thoughtful and fun group of people to work with, and they let us use our type to celebrate each team. The focus was on the type, which is one of the things that we love so much here in the shop, and making posters that were really for the football fans. And so that was kind of fun, because we got to represent the city in this national event, and work with such a great group of people who happen to be, working at the NFL, which is, pretty cool. So
that's pretty amazing. Wonderful. So I have, because I always try to find humor in everything that I do, I have one question from Christy. Christy, she would be asking this. She needs to know, do you have trouble with cat hair getting into everything? And how do you keep it clean? So that's a question, because I always have dog hair and cat hair in my prints. I don't know about anybody else.
Yes. Fortunately, we're a really big shop physically. We sweep every week, at least once a week. We brush now out regularly.
That is funny.
We do often find it in weird places, like we'll pull open a drawer that we don't look in very often, and there'll be, dust bunnies with cat hair in them.
Yes.
But for us, less with Mal. She's not so much interested in the prints. But we used to have another cat called Huey, and he loved checking out whatever prints just came off the press. And so if you left a print on the feed board or laying flat on a table, he would jump up on the table and he would walk all over the print. He'd get close to it.
Yes.
If it was still damp, he'd pick up some ink and there'd be little
Pop.
tap prints at the bottom. So we all learned all the posters have to stay vertical. Otherwise, you'd get.
I was watching them take them off press and put them up vertically. I wondered about that because I know if I bring mine, because I'll bring them inside the house, it's a little more climate controlled, and I'll sit them on the table and she lays on them and walks on them, but I have to make sure they're pretty dry or we're going to get little cat prints in them. That's funny. I love that. So Princess was asking, does each employee or designer, are they designated certain clients, or and do they have free reign for how they design what those clients are wanting, or do y'all work more as a group?
The way I describe this, the sort of creative and productive environment is that the art director is the shop. It's the history of the shop, what's come before, and the process that we use here, which is letterpress printing, because that strongly influences how we can design successfully. So as long as we're doing our best to honor the shop and its traditions and its history and the traditions of letterpress printing, everybody's able to work within the range of that. And unfortunately, I think, as you guys have probably found, if you like to letterpress print, there's something about the process that you want to bring out in the result in the work to some degree. And I know there's discussions about, separate the process from the end product and all that kind of stuff. But with letterpress printing, I think in the 21st century, we're kind of connected to the process. And so that really is what motivates and drives all of us. We all carve, so we all know how to, get an image out of a card block if you need to or want to. And we don't specify, so which is great. Sometimes some of us have favorites that we enjoy working with. Like for me, I really enjoy working with making posters for the Mavericks and Dwight Yoakam. They're two of my favorites, and for me it's fun because they're both challenging and celebratory, because we've done so many posters for both of those artists and that group that every time it's fun. So usually if the Dwight Yoakam poster comes up, everybody's going to let me get it. Yeah. John Prine was, for those of you who know who John Prine is, I hope you do. If you don't, look him up. He should be a poet laureate. Everybody loves John Prine. We all love John Prine, so we share him. Everybody gets to do a John Prine. We tend to rotate, and we tend to defer if somebody really has a strong idea for a specific project, they'll do it. But oftentimes, just like any shop, it comes down to a matter of timing, which is, okay, you have 4 jobs, you just finished one, this job's coming up next, you have to take it. I've got, 6 jobs, but nobody's getting back to me, so I see this one coming, and I've worked with them before, or I'm going to grab it because I know I can crank through it real quickly before these other folks get back to me. And so a lot of it is the logistics of making sure we meet the client deadlines. But every one of them is a challenge, and every one of them has, because they're so celebratory and commemorative, there's usually something fun out of each one that we get to do.
So I'm curious about this one, and I don't think you printed it. I think you said someone else printed it. But Avery was asking, how long does it take to print the largest format pieces from start to finish? So I specifically want to go back to the baseball player, because you said there were a lot of colors in there. How many colors are in the baseball player on the wall?
Oh gosh. Okay, so the baseball player, yeah, thanks for reminding me. Most of our posters are two or three colors. And it depends on the quantity and how much type there is to make ready and stuff like that. We try to give ourselves, these days, 3 to 4 days to print, and that you're not printing solid the whole time. You know, you're preparing to print, printing, mixing the ink, getting the type all made ready, and then you want to leave some time for the ink to dry from each layer so that the final print looks really nice and crisp and clean. The baseball player was originally, and it still is, 5 colors. So when Corey, one of the reasons why we decided to recarve that was because A, it's such a beautiful image. We wanted to see it fully brought to life because we don't have all the blocks. Over the course of the years, the blocks got repurposed. Some pieces seem to have been cut out to be made into shelving or a box or something. We're not quite sure. Some blocks may have gotten lost. And so we don't have the whole thing. And so it was an interesting project to look at what we had and use our forensic skills to extrapolate to the missing spots, to the holes, and filling the gaps and filling the holes. And so that's what Corey did. And he carved 15 blocks because it's 3 separate sheets. Each one's 5 colors.
Wow.
And so there's 5 blocks, 5 blocks per sheet. 3 times 5 is 15. And so that's what we did. And then he also experimented with color and the order in which he printed them and things like that to sort of experiment and educate ourselves about how that works.
Okay.
So we don't usually do 5 colors.
Right. You made me very curious. What kind of wood do y'all carve? What kind of wood do you carve?
Right now we carve in, it's all plywood, and
Okay.
it has either a maple or poplar veneer.
Okay.
Historically, the big blocks, the 1-sheet blocks, were probably basswood, and then the type is maple,
Yes.
some kind of either rock maple or something like that, because it's got to be really, really hard, because we use it over and over and over and over and over, and it holds up to the pressure. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
It made me curious. I have Lewis who is asking, what advice or recommendations would you give to someone who is interested in getting into letterpress?
And getting into it? Well, see if you can find a place where, well, actually, a couple of things. If you can find a place that teaches it, take that workshop, get in there, get inky. If you don't have access to that, see if there is a letterpress printer near you who you can spend time with, who will then, in exchange for, and I mean this quite literally, sweeping up or helping them do something, that's like a tedious task in exchange for exposure on the press. When I was at Columbia, at a certain point, I had taken all of the letterpress printing classes, and they just sort of said, you've got to stop doing that. So I said, okay, I'll donate, I'll work for you for free if you give me access to the presses. So I would do stuff like clean the walls in the paper beater room, or the paper studio, or go through and put away a bunch of metal things that had left behind, and then put away sort type, and then all that time, I would have access to that printing press, so I had 2 presses in my hand. And they have a website, you can see where everybody is. A lot of those folks will connect you with places you can learn to print or might teach you how to print. There's also a website called Letterpress Commons that has maps of the country where you can find places, print shops, and places that teach printing. And then online, Briar Press is a great place to start. There's a great community there. You can ask questions, and people from all over the country will answer your questions. You know, just, you got to get dirty.
That's absolutely right.
Get dirty.
So I'm going to wrap it up with this final question, because I know now everyone is curious, right? And they all want to go. I want to go. Are there public tours during non-pandemic seasons, and/or are there public tours now?
We have tours now, and that's great. Yeah, if you guys want to come and visit, we have tours. They're not coming inside the shop because we're operating as a bubble, but yes, you can take a tour. I should also mention, this year is not a normal year. Next year probably won't be a normal year, but in future years, we do offer internships. And a lot of, and you can think about that like with you can ask a local printer if they offer internships. And in our internships, we don't have any expectation that you know how to letterpress print. We will teach you everything from the ground up. So that's a great way also to learn how, if you like the process, if you like translating your design, training, and education into a physical letterpress printing process. So we have a whole webpage on our website about internships, so keep an eye on that. But yeah, you can come and take tours now. There's 3 tours a day, 7 days a week. And there's a little bit of printing at the end for everybody. But we are, you know, in a safe social distancing environment. So the tour groups are real small. They're about 8 people.
Okay, that is wonderful. And I want to thank you for joining us today. It has been amazing. All you've done is just fueled the fire in me that, you know, to want to go print and come there. So I really appreciate you joining us. It's been great. And yeah, I can't thank you enough for joining.
I hope maybe that I can come and visit you guys in person sometime.
You should
when we're
come.
To that.
Yes.
In the future. And we'll all drag some blocks with me maybe. We'll get inky together.
320G is what we have.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, Vandercook, and we have a, you know, a small Chandler Price, but that's the big one that we print on. Yeah. So I was giving you that so you'd know what block sizes to bring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, and our internships are not just for students, so they're for adults or people who graduated, graduate students across the board. So keep that in mind. And thank you so much. And this was, I hope that you guys were able to catch a little bit of the flavor of the classroom. That is, or of the print shop, I'm sorry. That is one of the fun things about this medium, if you will,
yes.
is that you get to actually be here live in a way that we normally wouldn't be able to be here. And hopefully some of the, even if you didn't get the smells, you got some of the sounds and the sights of,
yes.
of what it's like to be
I was going to
in
say
shop.
the only thing missing is the smell. And if they could just pipe, I should have brought a little can of Van Sun and popped it open so I would have that while I was talking to you. Then it would have been almost just like being there, because we've got the sounds, which are hypnotic to me. And if we would have had the ink, that would have been perfect. So I really appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate everyone who joined and asked questions that I didn't get to, just because we like to talk, and you know, but we got to a few, the important questions. I want to remind everybody that Monday at 12:30 we'll have Fahamu Piku joining us for another Visiting Artists Committee talk. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time out in your day. I know with a smaller staff and with everything that's going on, to join us and hopefully light a little flame, a little fire in our student population to go get inky.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm so happy to actually take a break and do this, because this is one of the things, as you know from the Aways Goose, this is the community is one of the reasons why we all love doing this. So.
Yes, and I'm trying to convert one student at a time. That's my goal.
That's all you need to do.
Yep, that's right. Okay, well, it was wonderful talking with you, and I think that's wrapping us up. So I appreciate it, and wished I was there with you guys. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.